February of 2017, two guys put out a game on GameJolt. It was the first chapter of what would be a 5-chapter game, but it gained the attention of Let's Players and got a couple of fan songs that would go on to garner millions of views. It was a simple game that had a somewhat unique art style, puzzle-solving elements, as well as elements of survival horror. In a year and a half, 4 more chapters, a mobile game, tons of merchandise, and a book deal later, BendyAndTheInkMachine is seen by many as this nice little indie game with a lot of meat on its bones. This is going to be a comprehensive look at Bendy and the Ink Machine. From its production and the game's older builds to its gameplay and advertising that makes the game what it is today. With that out of the way, this is the story of Bendy and the Ink Machine.
It all begins with a puppet named theMeatly, who makes games, comic, music, and has a YouTube channel. And yes, he is a puppet. Looking at a past game of theMeatly called Meatly Makes, we can see a cute little character with a far darker Tim Burton-like theme play out. We can see the Bad Idea Fairy, Downfish, El Glitch, and Feature Creep, which are all characters in the Meatly's comics, which are your typical comic strips with reviews, him announcing his marriage, and the usual relatable and random comedy, usually about game design. In early 2017, theMeatly began to experiment with a 3D world with a 2D feel to it, like walking into a living, breathing sketch. This is where Bendy and the Ink Machine came from, and oddly enough, it wasn't even the game he intended to make, but happened to be through just experimenting. Even the name of Bendy was a typo.
And I typed in, I think it was like monster.blend, but for some reason I went in the computer, and I was stuck with bendy.blend. I pressed enter, I'm like, okay, sure, whatever.
After the first version, Chapter 1 was made, Mike Mood then came into the picture. theMeatly is an artist, but Mike is a programmer. He worked with theMeatly on creating theMeatly Makes, as well as a few other games which I haven't been able to find. He was given the game to simplify and apparently has work cut out for him.
As soon as I handed over to him, I'm like, okay, just so you know, my code's a little bit messy. And he was telling me, oh, I've been seeing code for years. Can't be that bad. So we're talking on Skype, he opens it up. It was a major problem with that.
It was bad. It was bad.
But regardless, the work was put in, and they finally had the demo, which they decided to call Chapter 1 in case the game actually caught on. And surely enough, it did. On January 30th, 2017, Chapter 1 of the game was revealed along with its trailer. The trailer says, from the beginning, we dreamed, we created, we controlled. Now our creations rise against us. Fear the machine. On February 10th, Chapter 1 was released on GameJolt for free. Now, Chapter 1 has been updated 3 times, with new stuff added with the release of each new chapter, apart from Chapter 5. While each build of every chapter has its own changes, they all have the same basic structure. Chapter 1 begins with our protagonist Henry receiving a letter from a man named Joey Drew. It's been 30 years since the two have worked together on cartoons, and Joey wants to show Henry something. Oddly enough, Meatly Makes also begins with us being shown a single piece of paper. The chapter's title card is then shown as Henry is entering the workshop, and we hear the door close behind him.
Alright, Joey. I'm here. Let's see if we can find what you wanted me to see.
We then see posters on the wall starring Bendy and Boris. Notice how Bendy's gloves have 3 lines, kinda like Mickey Mouse. Now, I don't see Disney threatening to sue over gloves, but a bit of trivia for you, a company wanting to use a 3-line glove as a logo actually got approval from Disney to use just 10 days after Chapter 2's update, which is when Bendy's gloves changed from being 3 lines to 2 spots. When we interact with the exit behind us, we hear the same noise that every other locked door makes. It's locked. Now, obviously Henry has no reason to leave, so it wouldn't make sense for him just to up and turn around, but it's not that he just doesn't want to, he can't. Moving on, we can see film reels on a wall, a projector with music playing, and a cutout of Bendy. The projector appears to be playing the music we hear, but in the Chapter 2 update, a speaker is placed next to it. I also find it a bit odd that not only is nothing being shown by the projector, but that it was just left on. As we go to our left, we see a door with what seems to be some sort of mat in front of it. The door doesn't open, and so we come across Henry's old work desk with some sketches and another Bendy cutout.
Hey, here's my old desk. I wasted so much time in this chair.
Behind us is a door that's locked, which is later replaced with a door that's boarded up with light emanating from the top of the staircase, and was finally replaced with an animation room in the Chapter 4 update.
Looks like they knocked out a wall or 2 after I left. Guess it took a few people to replace me.
Heading inside, we see 4 animators' desks with props with lights inside of them, which were actually used in animation studios back in the day for seeing their progress in animating. However, there's one in the corner that has no prop behind it, but is just in that position like Henry's desk is. When you look away from the sketch of Bendy, it'll change every few seconds. We can also see an ad for bacon soup in a bathroom that's been boarded up with buzzing, flickering lights and a Bendy cutout inside. I mentioned the bacon soup ad because originally this wasn't in the game, it was fan art that won a fan art contest. Now while it is fan art and typically wouldn't be taken as canon, this entire section of the poster about it being an old family recipe was put in by the devs, as well as the taste of home, and just like Mom used to make achievements when getting all bacon soups in Chapter 4 and Chapter 1. Fortunately, I don't think there's much else to glean from this poster, so we don't really have to talk about it that much. If you stand in the right spot in the animation room, you can hear the sounds of someone shuffling papers. Odd. Going back through the main hall and past another locked door, we see a projector with no reels inside of it and the phrase "dreams come true" scrawled on the wall. It doesn't take a genius to know that this is a take on the Disney mentality that all dreams come true, and with a quote from Walt Disney saying all dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them. It also seems that the M in dreams was dragged on the floor, like someone died while writing this. But then why have the last letter and word you write be the M in dreams? This look is probably just caused by the ink dripping from the ceiling. Next to it, there's another door that cannot be opened. Walking down the hall, we come to a door with the light on and music playing. We pass 2 other doors before coming to a room at the end of the hall that says Ink Machine on top of the doorway.
So this is the ink machine, huh? Wonder how you turn it on.
Now what I'm showing you right now is the original version of the ink machine in the ink machine room. With it came a Bendy cut out in the corner, some loose boards, a chair, 2 set of drawers, and a couple of pipes hanging from the ceiling. In the Chapter 4 update, just before walking in, we see an ink output schedule ran by someone called TC. There are a few things to note on this board. First off, the number 3 implying this is a 3rd output schedule, and that, for some reason, the ink machine doesn't seem to run on Wednesdays or Thursdays, with work being put on hold on Thursdays and Wednesdays just having backup and 3W written on it. With a tally mark of 4 just below it, I think this means the ink machine has been on backup for 4 weeks straight on Wednesdays. Also, the last 2 Sundays seem to have exponential production with 103 and 423 gallons of ink. Now the biggest thing throwing this off is that this is a signed schedule, not recordings of ink output. On one hand, you'd think a schedule would be a bit more cleanly printed than this. On the other, it clearly says schedule, and I've never seen anyone use the term schedule for past events. Walking over a pipe and we see the entire ink machine room was remade into a massive warehouse-looking area, with light shining in from above. We can see that we're able to observe what would be people working on the cart down below, taking notes on walls, moving any of the crates or barrels around.
This lift could use a few dry cells.
Okay, so originally I thought these were some sort of canisters meant to be used to drain ink clogging the system. Turns out dry cells are an actual type of power cell that have very little liquid in them, making them great for transporting. It doesn't have any real significance, but just a fun fact I found out. It may also help explain why things like the projectors are able to work without cables leading to a power source. We get one dry cell from the shelf and the other from inside the chest, which has some sort of hook, a gear, and a bone inside that seems to be a different color than the rest of the building, apart from the curtains and the patch of dirt in the animation room. We put 2 dry cells in the generator, and then...
Let's see what you're hiding down there, old friend.
This is the ink machine as we know it today. It has pipes coming out from below it, an area for it to catch ink that comes out, and even retains the original shape and form of the ink machine, and even has a chamber labeled ink on the side. They did remove a little bit of Henry's dialogue from before as well, which I personally don't understand why they would, but whatever. If we go to the right, we see a door at the end of the hall. It doesn't open, but we can hear more of the paper shuffling from before. We head to the left to see 2 doors, a chair, and a tape recorder. A little table for the tape player would be added in a later update, as well as the ability to open 2 doors, one with soup, and the other with this.
Hello there.
Playing the tape.
At this point, I don't get what Joey's plan is for this company. The animations sure aren't being finished on time anymore, and I simply don't see why we need this machine. It's noisy, it's messy, and who needs that much ink anyway? Also, get this. Joey had each one of us donate something from our workstation. We put them on these little pedestals in the break room to help appease the gods, Joey said. Keep things going. I think he's lost his mind. But hey, he writes the checks. But I tell you what, if one more of these pipes burst, I'm out of here.
So Joey's cartoons aren't being finished on time, and Joey is planning on performing some sort of ritual, using an object from each employee that they work with to appease some sort of gods. Oddly enough, the ideas of gods is never brought up again, but it's there, and it's stated right there where Joey is delving with god worshipping. But I'll get into that in a bit. Heading down this hall, passing more pipes, we pass a door that would later be accessible, showing a room full of projectors. We then come across a theater room with a few chairs, a couple of rails on the wall, and a strange device that says ink pressure and has a button with the word flow on it. Going back the way we came and heading past the desk, we see another door with a light on. This door's light was however removed in the Chapter 2 update, so I don't think there's anyone behind it. We keep going as a board falls on the floor and we come to a room with 6 pedestals, each with a picture behind them, and a lever at the other end of the room with the sign main power and a light saying low pressure.
Alright, how do I get this to work?
Over the updates, this room hasn't changed much, though I will say that the original version feels closest to what I would even remotely call a break room like Wally says. We walk out of the break room and are greeted with this.
Oh, who put this here?
A Bendy cutout using the board that had fallen before with a little extra bit of wood to keep it standing up. A clear indication that someone has put this here, or it's propped itself up. Walking past that, we're greeted with the thing that I like to call the point of no return when it comes to this game.
Oh my god. Joey, what were you doing?
This is a dark glimpse of what's to come, as we see Boris, the wolf from the poster, naked and strapped to a table with metallic restraints and his ribcage exposed. A closer look and we can see what looks like a pipe leading from Boris's table and a massive ink splatter on the wall. On top of a bunch of papers plastered on the wall is the question, who's laughing now? This is an excellent moment that the game has a lot of. Scenes where there's a story that you can picture, but because it's not concrete or explicitly said what's happened, you can retell this in so many ways in your own mind. Was Boris the victim? Was this a retaliation? Who did this to him? Why would someone cut him open? It's one of my favorite moments in the whole game for its simplicity and story value, but also its shock value. It's at this point we know that this isn't just a game with jump scares, but one with moments of unease and dread, knowing that something terrible has happened here and that you never truly know what lurks around the corner. The room has obviously changed over updates, as well as Boris's look and his restraints going from clamps to ropes to belts. In the most recent update, Boris is clothed and attached to the wall with belts. A wrench isn't exactly used for surgery or for good bone structures, so why leave it there? Another thing that stays consistent is the eyes. The X's seem to be stitched on, rather for them to be natural for a cartoon to imply that they're dead. Did someone stitch his eyes closed? And did someone steal his eyes? This room also has parts of it that aren't made of wood, but are just solid ground. The door to our left leads to a small room with nothing particularly special about it. None of the items are here, and there isn't even any bacon soup. There is, however, more shuffling noises from where we heard them before. It seems that either this is just ambient, or something is nearby, always staying out of view. Opening the other door that was locked and our backtracking for the items brings us back to a door by the ink machine room now open, leading to some sort of break room with a dartboard, a few tables with a pile of books, a closet full of bacon soup, some larger version of the posters that we've seen already, a punching clock to save our game,
Back to the old grind.
and this area that's blocked off with boards. We can see a trapdoor on the other side, but obviously can't reach it. This room was added during the Chapter 3 update, and considering that doors don't unlock themselves, it seems almost certain that we're not alone. We walk down the hall and the light and the music go off in the room to our right. When we try to open it, we see a small room with some bacon soup, some candles, a record, a Boris poster, and a radio playing the Bendy and the Ink Machine song by Kyle Allen Music. This radio is in every chapter, each playing a fan-made song that's been remade to fit in this world. Along with all this, we find a piece of paper on the desk with the phrase, "He will set us free" on it. Again, doors don't unlock on their own, and since this door was locked before and after we could open the pub door, I think it's safe to assume that this is someone different. After looking around, we find the Bendy plushie, wrench, gear, inkwell, record, and a book. And I may be crazy, but the sounds of you collecting these objects feels incredibly satisfying. The last 3 items all have something on them. The inkwell has a skull on the side of it, implying danger. Now this could mean that this is normal ink that is hazardous and shouldn't make contact with, for example, your eyes, Or this could mean something more sinister. However, this is never brought into anything. It's also the smallest container of ink we've seen so far compared to the cans of ink in the hallways and the container of ink on the back of the ink machine. The book is called The Illusion of Living by Joey Drew. Now, we never see inside this book, but at this point this book could be about two things: a dark tale on life and its sinister inner workings, or a book on Joey Drew's animation process, moving frames in a fluid and dynamic way to give these still frames and characters the illusion of life on screen with these moving pictures. All 6 items are not only floating on the pedestals when we place them, but rotating, implying that the gods that Joey was trying to appease have accepted this, though in the Chapter 3 update they just simply sit there, so those details don't exactly mean much later on.
Okay, that's all of them. Now I just need to get the ink flowing somehow. Should be a switch around here somewhere. Then I can start up the main power.
Heading back to the projector room, and you may notice the Bendy cutout from before has disappeared. He's not gone for long though, as he peeks out to say hello on your way to the projection room. When we see him, he's just standing up against the wall. Also, notice the 6 chairs in the room, 1 for each item we had to collect, and 6 chairs at tables in the pub room with 8 chairs total, and 10 or 11 desks working at, depending on how you want to count them. As we go to push the flow button, the projector turns on, playing a short clip of Bendy bobbing up and down. After pressing the flow button, a pipe begins to leak, filling the room with ink. Someone probably turned off the flow in order to fix the leaking pipe, but it likely wasn't Wally, since he said,
If one more of these pipes burst, I'm out of here.
We do hear from him again, so either those tapes come before this one, or he's just bluffing. As we walk back to the break room, we can hear the sounds of banging and moving machinery, and the pipes bobbing up and down as the ink is pumped through them. Once we're back in the break room, we can pull the lever which causes the lights to go out, and all the sounds heard before are replaced with the sounds of the ink machine in the next room. In the Chapter 1 and 2 versions, the objects we've collected disappear.
Ah, that's goopy. The gods have accepted my sacrifice of random bullshit items.
Now I'd like to briefly take a moment and explain what this chapter does so well. The layout of the game guides you in a very natural way. I think almost everyone understands the basic controller layouts for first-person games like this, and on top of that, the basic curiosity of the room you walk into will likely cause you to have your crosshair go over the projector, and by knowing that E is typically what's used to interact with these kinds of games, teaches you the interact control without a need for a tutorial. This game is also very clever with its layout design. Take both these crossroads for example. Without turning, you can see something in front of you, with the other simply not visible, and therefore not all that intriguing, so typically you're going to investigate what's right in front of you, especially when it's not menacing or intimidating. In the original version, you can literally skip over the ink machine and go straight to the break room, and because the developers didn't think you'd go there first, the next objective is then triggered, but because there's almost no chance that you would go there on your first playthrough, the game doesn't need to force you down a path. Now, the game displayed the controls when you started out the Chapters 2 and 3 versions and was replaced with the whole jump and interact tutorial bit in the current one, but to me that seems just so unnecessary, and really unnecessary to display every time you replay the chapter, as well as blocking you off from skipping the ink machine room. I feel that this illusion of choice is way more interesting than the game forcing something on the player, at least once you realize that's what the game has done. Going back to the game with this idea in mind, you can actually go back into Boris's room and, after walking past a new ink puddle seeming to come from Boris's chest, we can walk straight into the back of the wall to meet the main puppet behind the game.
What the heck is this?
I don't think this is canon, it's just a nice developer Easter egg. You can then go past the ink machine room and try to leave, only to see the hall with the exits been boarded up. Why would this even be here, especially the door is already locked? Who would be trying to keep us in here, and why? Unfortunately, this little detail disappears after the Chapter 2 update. Going back down the hall, getting closer and closer to the ink machine, we see it's also boarded up, with the ink machine running, and when we peer inside...
I'm getting the hell out of here.
Yep, that's Bendy. Ink Bendy to be specific. Now again, this scene has been updated a bit and the audio has been taken out. Anyways. As we run with the studio falling apart around us, we make our way to the now unblocked exit with the door open. Who opened the door? Now this single scene has changed over time to be more engaging, but it stayed mostly the same in its basic idea. One thing you may not have noticed is the pub door being locked off with inky footprints leading to the ink machine room to the door. Seems like someone may have been escaping Bendy and took the time to place boards on the doorway to the ink machine room? Moving on, we've now fallen through the floorboards of the studio and are now waist deep in ink. Though I've never sat in a pool of ink, I don't think normal ink would be so dense that it would drag you down. Again, another mess that I don't think Wally would likely have been around for. Turning this valve drains the area, allowing us to move as usual, and we get to hear another tape recording. This one's from Thomas Connor, likely the gent officer from the ink output schedule.
It's dark and it's cold, and it's stuck in behind every single wall. In some places, I swear this godforsaken ink is clear up to my knees. Whoever thought that these crummy pipes could hold up under this kind of strain, that knows something about pressure I don't, or is some kind of idiot. But the real worst part about all this are the noises the system makes, like a dying dog in its last legs. Make no mistake, this place, this machine, and this whole darn thing, it just isn't natural. You can bet I won't be doing any more repair jobs for Mr. Joey Drew.
Like a dying dog on its last legs. Now this isn't the last time we hear from Thomas, so like Wally, he's either bluffing, or every recording past this one are ones that happened earlier on. Draining more pipes and heading further down, we see a group of candles, some covered in ink, and a set of sheet music for the song The Lighter Side of Hell. Continuing to drain the ink leads us to this room. Originally this was the room you fell into in the Chapter 1 version. There's writing on the walls like the one upstairs that says, "The Creator lied to us," and a bucket of ink and a splatter beneath it. We look over to the workbench like the ones we saw upstairs, and we get our first tool. The axe.
This will definitely come in handy.
We're then able to clear our way through and find another door. This one has 3 coffins, 3 chairs, and a pentagram with what looks like Bendy's head drawn in the center, surrounded by candles. We then have our only 2 bits of Bendy imagery since we fell, the poster and the pentagram, as the building begins to shake before... Okay, well, not always that. The newest version, and every version that's come before, gives us 3 images before we pass out. The ink machine, though it seems to be coming from an angle where the workbench was, a wheelchair, and Bendy. This sequence has changed with every update up until Chapter 4, and Chapter 2 actually had a 4th image in between the wheelchair and Bendy, with us seeing Bendy at our work desk, and with us seemingly standing behind a boarded off doorway. And as we begin to see the images in the Chapter 3 version, there's this pattern that covers the walls. This all happens before Henry collapses to the ground, dropping the axe. The last thing we see is actually in the original Chapter 1, where we see Bendy's grin come out of the shadows. And that is the end of Chapter 1. Before I move on though, I wanted to give my thoughts on this chapter. The original, and I mean the Chapters 1 and 2 versions, are awesome. They're simple yet effective, and even after playing them so many times, I just love the cozy studio atmosphere. The newer versions have a lot of depth, blur, bloom, and other visual features, but I really just turned them down because I like the simplicity of the game without all the extra noise. Still, it's just amazing, even now with its bells and whistles. Now, on to Chapter 2.
Unfortunately, that's all I've got for now. I made this script with the expectation of this being one huge video, but my computer is struggling to render things with just making Chapter 1, and I figured it was best if I shared what I had so far and just made a supercut with my release of Chapter 5. I know that's going to make it difficult to follow, but hopefully you can just kind of bear with me here. And if you don't want to watch it segment by segment, then, here's your chance to stop watching now, and you can just watch it all at once when I release it with Chapter 5, presumably next December. I don't have any anticipated release dates for these in the future since I wanted to take the time to make them interesting because I've already recorded my script up to the end of Chapter 4, but I feel like the quality of the video is just better with me taking the time to make these shots and transitions. On top of that, YouTube isn't exactly something I can do full time, so I'd rather say something is coming and that I'm doing my best to make it the best it can be, rather than fall short of the release dates that I put in place for myself. Now, at this point the video is basically over, but if you are interested, I do want to talk about something. YouTube sponsorships. I've done YouTube for almost 2 years now, and I've yet to earn even a cent. I've never been able to earn over $100 in ad revenue in a month, and so I've never been given that money, and it's just all gone back to YouTube. I do most of my videos out of enjoyment of the topic, critiquing and editing, and while I'd love to be able to, say, be hired to edit for others, right now that's just not a possibility for personal reasons, so for now I'm focusing on my own content and my own channel. While making the features that I promised, I wanted to make sure that they were flexible and pretty much guaranteed, so if you do sponsor, you'll have access to videos before they go live, drafts of scripts and early renders of videos to see and give me feedback on, sponsor-only live streams where I make bad art, work on videos, or just playing games, and you'll also get a badge icon next to your name when you comment or say something on a live chat. Not only that, but for both the final video and every chapter in Bendy I upload from this point onward, you'll have your name at the end. Even if you sponsor me for just a month and I don't finish this till, say, April or December, then I will make sure that your name is included in the final end credits. Now, if you can't sponsor, I want to make something very clear. The content you see on this channel is the only real content I want to have go out there. And the videos I've uploaded have almost always been made public a few days after uploading to make sure that they're not demonetized or content ID'd. I also read every comment you make already, so the badge icon doesn't mean much to me apart from me knowing that you're supporting me. And I really appreciate that. Now that all of that's been said, it's completely up to you whether you do so or not. Again, I'm not going to hold anything against anyone. I've tried to make it as clear as possible that I am not doing this to restructure my channel to where unless you're paying me money monthly, then you're not getting content. You are still getting the best content I want to offer. Everything else is just kind of background noise. The bulk of what you're getting out of this is supporting me and giving me the opportunity to actually make money off of YouTube. And if this were to get big enough, then maybe I could actually do this as, dare I say, a job. So yeah, that's everything I wanted to say. Hopefully you did enjoy the video. If you have feedback, comments, or anything, then just kind of let me know down below. And thank you for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed this and you'll continue to enjoy this as I continue to make these. If you want to see a video that I made all the way back in September, that's in this vein of video, but it's a complete review start to finish, and it's something that I'm incredibly proud of, and you're just looking for more content by me, then it's right there. Or it's, in the description or somewhere. Every single one of my sources I have cited down there, down below, so fair warning if you're on desktop and you have to scroll all the way down. So I believe that is absolutely everything I wanted to say. Hopefully you enjoyed, and whether you're supporting me through sponsorships, just liking the video, sharing the video even, thank you. Anyways, I'm off to go torture myself with Bendy Chapter 2, so I will see you guys in, say, a month. Alright, see ya.